this week, I just wanted to focus on just kind of just getting stuff out there, just being confident, building that confidence. Um, I think that's one thing that, I have to get back to is just building up that confidence. I think I spent so much time in the last couple years just, humbling myself and understanding that I don't have all the answers. I don't, I didn't have the wherewithal to really do some of these workouts or the training or, anything. And I had to spend a lot of time just learning how to do things, honestly. This year has brought me back to that because I've been spending a lot of time with strength training and just learning how to, build that form, lift heavy. And, I put this post up to this morning, and the first thing that I thought about, and I knew my form, and I tried to go heavy. I just I had 345s on each side, and I was doing a squat, and I went for one rep. My form wasn't the best form that you can ever have, and I felt embarrassed, but I still posted it. I didn't feel great about the spotter that I had. The guy tried, but I just didn't. There was a lot of things about that squat that I didn't feel comfortable about, but I still posted it. And mainly just because I want to get used to putting things out there that's uncomfortable, man. I feel like, especially with social media and just anything that you put out, it has to be the finished product. And I've been reading this book lately. It's called Mindset, and they talk about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset, in this instance, by not posting it, the fixed mindset is me believing that that's the best I can do and that's the best I'll ever get. And with the growth mindset is just believing that that's the start. That's the start of beginning to lift heavy. That's the start of beginning to build that form. Most people would be embarrassed by posting that because they're not the finished product. And I want to get out of that. I want to get out of that mindset of thinking like every set that you post has to be perfect. Everything that you put on social media has to be perfect, because that's not what the brand is about. That's not what 3P is about. 3P is about passion, pain, and progress. The passion, it starts with that passion. You start with that passion, that love for something, that drive for something, and then the pain comes in. That pain can be learning how to lift heavy, learning how to lift properly, learning how to do something, and then that progress comes along. And it's just a cycle: passion, pain, and progress. And you're going to experience that with everything, every single thing that you do, no matter what. You'll experience that passion for something, that pain of learning how to do it, getting through that hard situation, and then that progress. But you can't stop there at that progress. You got to continue on getting back to that passion. So I just wanted to showcase that because, there is times where I'll post something and I'll feel super embarrassed about it. But just having the wherewithal to understand that you got to learn. You got to be in a position to learn. And if anything, if it doesn't help somebody else learn, I can always go back and see where I was a year from now, see where I was a year ago, and see the progress that I've made personally in my own journey. So, that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest things that I want to focus on this year. Is just getting back to that the essence of what 3P meant. It wasn't about the times. It wasn't about how fast you are. It wasn't how heavy you can lift. It's about learning. It's about that process of passion, pain, and progress, and how to get to your goals by using those three things. So today we have about a 6.5 mile run, but I got a little bit of time to do a little bit more, so I might just do 8 to just catch up on some of that last week's mileage that I didn't get to. And we're going to continue on this week. This week is going to be a very solid week. I'm going to try to get as much miles as I can in. It is a deload week. Last week last week ended up being a deload week. It wasn't supposed to be, but I was able to make it a deload week. I actually did a little bit more than I was supposed to. And so this week, I'm just going to pretty much just level up. We still got some solid mileage in. This week, I want to just get better. And, the main thing is just getting up early, getting my workouts in, and making sure that I'm doing what what I said that I'm going to do. With training, with marathon training, man, you can go into it with a plan. Like it's that old, that Mike Tyson quote, like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So, the reality is, it's not always going to look sweet. Sometimes you're going to have to do 6 miles in the morning. Sometimes you're going to have to do 6 miles in the evening. Like I said, being a family man, I have certain obligations that I have, and it's not always easy. It's not always easy, but as long as you get the work done, as long as you're doing what you said you're going to do, and do it your way. Nobody says that you have to wake up in the morning and run 20 miles. There's a lot of people that say that, but you can do it your way, man. I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from my journey. I'm happy when I do it my way. Sometimes it's just the knowledge of knowing that I can get up and run 6 miles, go through a whole day. On my way home, I run another 6 miles and still make it home on time to be there for my son before he goes to sleep, and talk to him, and sometimes have a chat with my wife, maybe have a whiskey, and, we just talk about our day. If that's what makes you happy, because that's what makes me happy, sometimes you got to do it that way. And that's not against, if you got to get up in the morning and get everything done right before work and then have your free time, solid too. It's about how you're getting it done and how you're reaching your goals, because there is times where I wake up and I get my workout done 100% before I even start my day. So it's all about how you do it. As long as the work gets done, as long as you're happy at the end of the day, and as long as your family knows that you're there with them 100%, I think you're on the right track. So 3P, passion, pain, and progress. Let's get this day started. Let's go.
Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Don't let them rain on your spark. Keep it close to your heart. All of the pressure's gonna drive you crazy. Close your eyes to the madness. In the morning, it's all gonna vanish. Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you. Not every light is gonna guide you.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land. Whole wrist covered up in ice. Dealership, never ask the price. I hit the mall and ball with my dogs. Yeah, I swiped it once without thinking twice. Cause this what I was made for. Man, I know this what I came for. On a big stage, couple thousand people, and they do whatever I say so. Have chicks that color of the rainbow. Yeah, chains on me like Django. Be a long way from my tank low. Cause my Tesla charge for them bank rolls. And I'm grinding, money on my mind, and I'm headed to the top. I won't stop until I find it. Write my name in diamonds, but all these lights are blinding. I wonder, is it worth it? Feel like I'm losing my mind. Yeah, remind me.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Don't let them rain on your spark. Keep it close to your heart. All of the pressure's gonna drive you crazy. Close your eyes to the madness. In the morning, it's all gonna vanish. Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you.
Since I blew up, everybody telling me that I'm the man. Same people gave me the finger, they reaching out for me to give a hand. In a different city and my pills came, cause this tour don't happen, I feel pain. And the girl with me say she down for life, but she don't even know what's my real name. Just try to get what she came for. And ain't nothing I got safe though, cause when the money go wild, everybody get a piece. But it's looking like I ain't on the payroll. Got a big house made out of Play-Doh, and a plastic crown for my halo. But still a long way from my tank low, cause my Tesla charge for them bank rolls. And I'm grinding, money on my mind, and I'm headed it to the top. I won't stop until I find it. Write my name in diamonds, but all these lights are blinding. I wonder, is it worth it? Feel like I'm losing my mind, yeah, remind me.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Don't let them rain on your spark. Keep it close to your heart. All of the pressure's gonna drive you crazy. Cause you rise to the madness. In the morning it's all gonna vanish. Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, don't be
This week was really, man. This week was about just gratitude. You know, just remembering where I started at, and remembering why I even started this running, endurance sports, marathoning. Why I just started getting active in the first place, and you know, this week, you know, there comes a time in like marathon training. I don't know if it's for everybody's training or whatever you're doing. You know, when you're trying to push your body to its limits, you're breaking your body down. You know, you get those like kind of like stubborn injuries, or you know, just mentally you're not all the way there, or you know, whatever it can be. You know, there's throughout training you meet so many different challenges that you got to push through. And, you know, for me, it's just those stubborn injuries that I always get. Like I said, it's like, you know, I know my body, and I know what you know, I know when I'm pushing it hard and what injuries come about. And then I know, like, how to fix those injuries. And then you think, like, man, like, I knew this from last time. Why didn't I do these stretches? Or why didn't I do, you know, this recovery method to kind of prevent those injuries? And it's almost like that definition, like you do the same thing over and over and get the same results, and it's like what do they say, like that's considered insanity. But you know, these training blocks are long, and you really, like, you forget about certain things that happen to your body. But you know, instead of getting down on yourself, instead of getting down when you hit those moments, you know, you gotta look back and think about like when you started, or when, you know, just that progress. You know, for me personally, it's just thinking back about when, you know, I first started, when the goal wasn't to run a marathon in under 4 hours. The goal was just to lose 5 or 10 pounds. The goal was just to, you know, get healthy enough to gain some time back, to spend with my family and with my son. You know, that was you know, getting back to the essence of when you started doing, why you're doing it, you know, doing what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's big for me, and that was big for me this week, is just kind of getting back to those moments, because, you know, we and I say we, but I mean myself. You know, I get to these moments where I'll you know, I'll miss a workout and I'll be so hard on myself, or I'll not hit a specific pace, or I'm not, you know, I remember there was a moment when you know, in the beginning, it was about maybe like 4 or 5 weeks ago, when I tried to deadlift 405, and I got super upset because I didn't get it, and there was no prior workout that I've done that made me believe that I can do that. You know, and then I know my capabilities. I know I'm strong enough to do it if I put in the work and I put in the time. But, you know, I got super, like, bent out of shape over not being able to pick up this weight and deadlift it for 1 rep when I didn't have any work behind it. So just going back to this week, and I'm looking back on all the work I put in over the last 6 years of just lifting weight, running, everything that I put my mind to, everything that I actually studied and worked on and built that consistency with, I eventually got better and I was able to do it. So with that being said, I look at this week as being like, okay, one, I wasn't supposed to run as much as I wanted to. This was one of those weeks where I wanted to kind of make up for some of the runs that I missed during the beginning of weeks. So I planned on having a really, really long, I'm putting in more mileage, and I end up not being able to do that. One, due time constraints, and then two, just kind of those little nagging injuries that I know can be prevented, but also just putting your body through rigorous exercise that you just get. So I found myself down. I found myself thinking like, man, like, how am I going to get this goal if I'm not able to get these workouts in? But I thought about gratitude. I thought about, I was on the way to work. I was on the way to take my son to school, and there's a song, I forget the artist, but he just says, it's a great day to be alive. And you forget that you're alive, man, or if you're able to do the things that you do. It's that old adage, you don't get to do what you do. You don't have to do what you do, you get to do it. And it's just bringing back that gratitude of being like, man, like, I get to do this. I get to wake up in the morning. I get to take my son to school. I get to come home and enjoy time with my wife and my family. I get to experience a lazy day, and I get to experience coming back from that lazy day. I get to experience losing weight. I get to experience motivation, motivating myself, motivating others. We get to do these things because, one, if you're listening to this, or if you're alive to hear this, you're alive. If I'm able to talk to this camera or to YouTube or whatever it is, man, I'm alive. Why not have gratitude? You will have hard days. That's just life. You'll always have hard days, but in some weird, twisted ways, it is a blessing to experience hard days, because there are people that can't experience hard days because they're not here. It's an interesting perspective to have, and but that's the way I have to start looking at things again. And I always had that perspective, but I think as you get faster, as you get better at running, as you have, like I said, I'm going into my 7th marathon. You built this belief up that now that I have this experience, I should be able to go out and do X, Y, and Z. So I found myself down. I found myself thinking like, man, like, how am I going to get this goal if I'm not able to get these workouts in? But I thought about gratitude. I thought about, I was on the way to work. I was on the way to take my son to school, and there's a song, I forget the artist, but he just says, it's a great day to be alive. And you forget that you're alive, man, or if you're able to do the things that you do. It's that old adage, you don't get to do what you do. You don't have to do what you do, you get to do it. And it's just bringing back that gratitude of being like, man, like, I get to do this. I get to wake up in the morning. I get to take my son to school. I get to come home and enjoy time with my wife and my family. I get to experience a lazy day, and I get to experience coming back from that lazy day. I get to experience losing weight. I get to experience motivation, motivating myself, motivating others. We get to do these things because, one, if you're listening to this, or if you're alive to hear this, you're alive. If I'm able to talk to this camera or to YouTube or whatever it is, man, I'm alive. Why not have gratitude? You will have hard days. That's just life. You'll always have hard days, but in some weird, twisted ways, it is a blessing to experience hard days, because there are people that can't experience hard days because they're not here. It's an interesting perspective to have, and but that's the way I have to start looking at things again. And I I always had that perspective, but I think as you get faster, as you get better at running, as you have, like I said, I'm going into my 7th marathon. You built this belief up that now that I have this experience, I should be able to go out and do X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, every marathon block you're building on your base, but you're really building from square one. There's a small window in your 16-week marathon block that you're going to be the fittest you're going to be within those 16 weeks, and you can maintain it for a certain amount of time. And for me, I'm not your like atypical athlete. I'm not someone who was born with all of these gifts, and that's not to put myself down, but there's a lot of work that goes behind getting up to a consistent faster pace. My fastest time last marathon block came at the end of the year when I did a 5K that I averaged I think 7 minutes and 26 seconds per mile, and part of it was we was running downhill. You know what I mean? So but nevertheless, it was a really good race, and part of that was because it was at the end of the marathon block, and I was just at a very, very fit moment in my training or after my training. So you gotta take it in stride. You gotta realize that every run that you do isn't going to be a great run or the best run that you ever had. And two, if you're following a plan, it's not designed to. I think I did one of my best runs by ever a week ago when I just did a zone 2 training run, and that was honestly, since I've been running, that was one of my best runs. I mean, everything down to the data was a really good run. So with that being said, it was a solid week. I'm looking forward to getting to next week. So if you love this journey, if you like this journey, if you like what I'm saying here, man, just like, share, subscribe. I'm going to continue on building on this marathon block and build on just everything that I'm doing. So like, share, subscribe, and see y'all next week. Peace.